On the social media thing, one of the things that comes up quite a lot is the subject of mental health and the impact of social media on mental health. How do you find it having to continuously run, all of you guys, social media, and how do you balance the kind of the stress and the anxiety of, oh, somebody I haven't got enough likes on my post, or I'm not posting every day, like you say. Is it something that you guys experience, and how do you deal with that?
I think this is a really interesting one, actually. I've got, in the run up to this tour that I'm leaving for, I've deleted my Facebook and my Twitter, and I've deleted Instagram off my phone as well, just to try and get enough work done to kind of give myself on a Saturday an hour of Instagram where I post and say hello and check in. But I think distance and recognizing how much time you are spending on social media is a really important thing. Just check in. That's really helped me personally as well, because I get a lot of work through social media, and also I think visibility is really important for a woman in the technical side of the music industry. So I'm constantly shouting about what I'm doing, but on the flip side of that, you do have to look after yourself, and finding that balance I think is really important, definitely.
What about when you go out on a tour, for example, Toby, and all the stress of managing that? How do you find it? I know you've spoken to me in the past about this issue, and how do you kind of manage the whole, the schedule and just actually having a life as well as.
I mean, yeah, it can be pretty intense. For those of you that don't know sort of the insides of touring, there's normally, it obviously depends. You could be in a van tour, you could be on a bus tour. Van tours I find even more stressful than a bus tour. Mainly because of the fact that you're travelling whilst you're awake. If you're doing from one end to the UK up to the other, you're sat on that van for 6 hours watching every single second of that. And even that can just mentally drive you insane. It's just, waiting for the next service station just to stretch your legs. Well, obviously with tour buses, you've got toilets on there. You can pace up and down the tour bus if you really, really need to. The only downside of the tour bus is there's normally about 12 of you on there. It's all in bunk form. You stay on it, you sleep overnight, and then you wake up in the next venue. That's the slight perk to it. Like I say, you wake up in the next place, so you haven't had to go through that whole sort of sitting around. The hard thing can be especially private space, your own time. Obviously, like I say, there's a lot of you on the bus. It's very, it's still a big bus, but it's quite a small bus in the sense of you can't just pop out of this room and go and sit for somewhere by yourself. You can get in your bunk, but your bunk's slightly, about that much wider. So it's not actually, a great space to be sort of hanging around in. So that can be very, really difficult, finding your own time. And it's quite important to, you get days off. And I like to quite often on days off go and have a little explore by myself. Or even just go and find a coffee shop and just sit for a bit and try and regain your yeah, literally. And then the same, even if you haven't got days off, if you're not doing anything, go and hang out around, go find somewhere, go and treat yourself to a film, or just go down the pub, just,
What about in the lead up to it? If you're kind of nervous about obviously you're not a performer in that sense, but if you go out on performing tours, how do you kind of get ready for that mentally and, compartmentalize it in a way that you can just attack it without really thinking about everything else that, like you say, in the bus and the negative side of it?
A big part of that comes down to, again, the whole phone thing. Before sort of, if it's a fairly big show, I will not go on my phone for like an hour before. I won't eat before. I don't drink when I'm doing gigs normally. That's also down to a professional side of thing. I feel that if somebody's hired you into work, you don't want to get absolutely smashed before the gig because they're paying you. I know in many cases where that has happened, and it doesn't go down well, especially if you're wanting to be a professional musician. You've obviously got to build your reputation. Obviously warm-ups are quite important, not just warming up your arms, but warming up just, doing stretches, all that kind of stuff. Even if, as a drummer, I'm not sort of doing massive lengths up and down a football pitch, but I'm still obviously moving around loads. So warm-ups like that mentally really help. I've got an app on my phone called Rain. I don't know if anybody's ever come across that, but it's basically got loads of, we were talking about this the other day in the car, it's just got loads of sounds. So you've got like rain on a tent, rain on a window, wind, seaside. There's one for a canteen. Don't know why. Like, if anyone finds that relaxing, then that's the app for you. There's loads. There's tumble dryers. You can mix 3 of them all together. There's a dog snoring. There's loads. There's cat purring. There's loads. And there's quite often moments where if I can't escape from a certain area and I find that, you know, backstage, you've got the band, the crew, their guests, and it can be really, you know, you can't get out of that, but you want your indoor space. Just pop your headphones in and it sounds absolutely mental, but I just listen to rain. And, you know, people probably think that I'm listening to music, but I'm actually just sat listening to sounds of rain on a tent.
Whatever gets you ready for it.
Literally. And I know that sounds really stupid and everyone has their own personal things, but that to me is a way to mentally prepare yourself for stuff, because it can be a very exhausting, weird experience going out playing, you know, a big show, or even small shows. It can be, you know, mentally it can be quite challenging, and then the come down afterwards can be really weird, because you've just gone out, you've had a massive buzz, and then suddenly you've just gone back to sort of, right, I'm now sweaty, I'm in a dressing room, I've got to go and sit on the bus for the rest of the evening. So then you sort of almost have to redo what you did beforehand, get out that little app, listen to some rain on the tent and just chill. That's when you can then have a couple of drinks if you want to, because obviously you finished doing what your job is. If you don't drink alcohol, drink water, drink whatever you need to drink. But literally just take your time to, you know, literally take care of yourself and eat healthy as well. That's a massive one. Caffeine isn't actually that great in those sort of environments. It's great to keep you awake, but it's a horrible thing.
In the long run.
Yeah.
How important is it, Reuben? You're someone who is involved in a lot of different things, wears many hats. How important do you think that is to be doing, you know, not just say I want to be a musician, I'm going to be a musician, but to be a musician and to work in the industry the way that you work? Is that important, do you think? Or can you just do one thing?
Yeah, I think it's massively important. I think there's so many different lines of work and there's so many different people that are great at what they do. I think we live in a day and age where I very rarely see a bad band. And I don't know why that is. I think as a UK, we are sort of known worldwide for being able to write a song or two. I think we're pretty good. I've dished out a few good bands, Led Zeppelin, you know. So we're quite a creative nation, and there's lots of people going for the same spot. There's lots of people that want to be, and lots of people that deserve to have that spot. And as a result of that, maybe some of our dreams have to kind of be sort of realigned in line with that. There's lots of people going for stuff, even great bands that are streaming millions, are selling out Shepherd's Bush. They still have day jobs. It's kind of a saddening fact. A band called Field Music, for example, signed to a very good label called Memphis Industries. I think they've released about 6 or 7 albums. They've done loads of collaborative work with lots of different musicians. I think it was 3 years ago, a Guardian article came out, and both brothers in the band, they both grossed £8,000 in a whole year. And obviously that's not really enough money to sustain yourself. So the reality of the situation is that in order to be an artist that's going to make money as your full-time occupation, it's a harder task to do. So you need to find different skill sets and different ways of making money, essentially, if that's what you want to do. Some musicians, solo artists, I think solo artists are kind of in a different world where they can sustain themselves better, because obviously it's just themselves.
A case in point there actually would be a guy called Gaz Brookfield.
Absolutely.
For anybody who doesn't know Gaz Brookfield, he started off as a singer-songwriter, much like Kate. He toured the circuits as a covers artist, doing pubs, doing 2 sets of 45, getting paid a wage. He then started going on to support bills as doing original music, doing little support sets. Turns out that the pubs he was working in loved him. They'd bring him back to do all originals. He then built, and he did this nationwide. He's played every pub in this country without a shadow of a doubt. He is now able to sell out venues like SWX in Bristol. He can sell out big venues all across the south, and he now has a mortgage, and he is a full-time employed musician, and he can scale it up if he wants to do a full band show, 7 musicians, or he can do a solo show or a duo show. So yeah, it's very possible.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a balance between, say, for example, getting a full-time job in the industry or a part-time job in the industry and being a musician on the side? Can you do it if you get a full-time job in admin and do gigs in the evening, for example? Or do you kind of need to be in amongst it 24/7, even if you're not performing 24/7? You know, having a job like Kate, for example, you work in the industry 9 to 5 and also singer-songwriter on the side is very different to perhaps working at Tesco 9 to 5 and then...
I do.
Sorry. Definitely. I feel like I tried to do that. I tried to work because I was like, I'm going to be a songwriter full time, but I just need to work this coffee shop for a bit. And then I'm going to make my millions and then I'll be absolutely fine. It doesn't happen that simply. And I think for me, I just drove myself a bit mad not being in the creative industry for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I think everyone finds their own path of what they kind of are passionate about. And for just talking about myself, I have to be immersed in the music or some element of the music on a day-to-day basis. Otherwise, I just go mad. So I think it's finding the balance, and it is not in any way easy because you're working like 8 hours a day, and then you're going home and you're writing music. So it is a kind of immersed life in music, but I couldn't do it any other way. And I think like working in a coffee shop really proved that to me.
But I don't think you necessarily need to have a creative job. Like it can be any kind of job. I think it's what you're saying, that for you it took a while to get to that place.
Yeah.
But, one of the best bass players I know in Bristol, Adam Newton, who was in a band called Blackbird, his day job is a plasterer, and he's absolutely incredible at that job. And so I think it again, it's just a case of example that we basically, great musicians still need day jobs, is what we're sort of saying.
I wasn't saying that that's what you should definitely do, but just saying for me, that's what I realised about myself. But yeah, definitely, I think you still need a day job.
And the same for myself with my day work. I couldn't not do a job that wasn't in some way related to music. And then obviously what we have to our advantage is we're working with musicians, with promoters, and as a byproduct of our day jobs, sometimes our evening jobs as musicians can get extra benefits, such as simply meeting people. It's not like we're doing it in a sneaky or obsequious way, but it sometimes just happens that the person that you meet who's working on your day project is a massive fan of your work, and it's inevitable that you're going to then find new work that way.
I think as well as a musician, if you are wanting to do both, because even as a musician, there is always not stuff that is paid. You might have to do stuff, and I still do stuff that is for free. I normally obviously go by if they pay for the travel or accommodation and food, so you're not, missing out on your own money. But it's important to do that, because there is a lot of cases and some good opportunities that you can take that might not have the budget for you to be on there. Whether that's as a musician or a tech or crew. Even I know crew members that still do tours just for food and a place to sleep, because it's a great opportunity to be on. You meet so many people from doing that. Like if you're going to have a job on the same time, there's loads of stuff out there as well, which is 0 hours. And that's really, really practical and really, really great. Because you can literally say, look, I've got to work till 5. I know it's till 6, but actually I've got to go because we've got sound check at 6:30. And you can do stuff like that. And that's really, really good to have on top.
Flexibility.
I think you need to be careful with stuff like that, for sure. You still need to give yourself stability and know that your employer isn't going to get fed up with you saying, I need to leave an hour early every day, or I need to tour for a month. I think finding the balance is really important.
Definitely.
Being clear about that in advance.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Kieran, you look like you were dying to say something.
There's been so many great points that I wanted to jump in at so many times, but it's just, there's lots of good stuff coming out here. Going back to the job thing, I become a promoter because my afternoons were free because I was a postman. So I'd spend all day walking around, not having to think about my job because the actual job itself was quite straightforward. So I was constantly thinking about new ways to advertise and how to contact people and all these interesting things. And then I go home at like 1 o'clock and then have my afternoon off, and then I'd actually promote, get on the line, send off emails, write press releases, and then I'd do the show that evening. So actually, yeah, my day job paid for my mortgage, my house, and then I was just doing shows on the side for like life enjoyment. And obviously, just over time, it snowballed and scaled up. And now I'm able to find myself in the industry. My first full-time job in the industry was doing PR, a record distributor. Through my promotion stuff, they said, "Oh, you're really good at PR. Do you want to come work for us?" I said, "Yeah, of course I will." Took a pay cut, went and did that full-time. And then whilst working in the industry, as Reuben and Kate said, I met so many other people, opened so many other doors. I learned what other people did, and that actually gives you a much better understanding of the whole industry as a whole, because if you know what somebody else does and what their pressures are, you can figure out how stuff works for you. It all depends on whether you want to be fully immersed in it. And if you can be, I couldn't be, because I had children quite young, so I couldn't go on tour. I couldn't do that side of things. But I knew I wanted to work in the industry. I knew I had a passion for it, so I became a promoter based in Wiltshire, so I wouldn't have to go up to Edinburgh or Leeds or London or wherever, because I couldn't physically do that. So there are ways of doing it whilst balancing an actual personal life as well. So
Just giving yourself time, I guess, to do what you love and be able to support yourself financially as well.
Yeah, and making the most of it whilst you're young. I mean, I'm only 23, so it makes it sound really old when I just said that. But make all those opportunities and hang around with a lot of older people. Whether that's as well as musicians, you go and play.
Did you say a lot of old people or odd people?
Old. I mean, there are a lot of odd people in the industry, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, there
but
is.
a lot of old people. Not old, but like middle-aged. But yeah, no, I mean, like when I was 16, round from here, I used to go and play pub gigs with like 40-year-olds, and used to be playing covers and all this kind of stuff. And it's great because you get the experience from older people. You get to build your confidence a little bit because you're not feeling pressurized that you're out there by yourself. You're around a lot of other people that have done it, or they've got day jobs and they're playing gigs in the evening because they enjoy doing it. And it's an experience thing. And then hanging around with other crew or other musicians or other people that are doing what you want to do but at a higher level. Hang around that, you then start learning ways of how to do your job slightly better, or that might work better than that way because they've done it and they know that it works. And you can gain a lot of experience from hanging around with other people that are doing it.
Can I just corroborate that? He's absolutely right. Kate's drummer is a guy called Jack Moore. That's right, isn't it?
Toby Partridge sat next to
bassist.
Kate.
Oh, sorry, you're the drummer. Okay, so her bass player is a guy called Jack Moore, who I met when he was like 14. He was really young.
He went to Tippenham College as well.
Did he?
Yeah.
There you go. He's also So, and I met him really, really young. He says to me now he's 23. And I think I've known him nearly 10 years. But he's still only 23. But he hung out with me and met so many people through the community of the local scene, to coming to gigs and meeting other people and networking and building it up. So that's really, really important, yeah. And also the hanging out with older people. So I wanted to be a sound engineer. I wanted to learn my craft. I wanted to get better at it. So I'd contact people that had played for me, who'd gone on to the next level, and say, actually, can I come shadow your tech, please? Yeah. And I got an opportunity to go tour with Frank Turner doing academy venues with his engineer, a guy called Graham. And I didn't give a crap about the rest of the crew. I wasn't interested in them. I just wanted to hang with Graham and say, Graham, so what does this button do? And he look at this desk, and he was showing me some crazy stuff that I just did not have access to prior to that point, and it absolutely blew my mind. Sound check it at O2 Academy in Bristol. You've walked in. He said, all right, yeah. So they bring up the recording of the last night's show, just play it back through the sound system, re-EQ it. It's the first time I'd ever seen a digital desk used in that way. And I was like, what? The band aren't even on stage, and they've already sound checked. Because all the inputs and channels are all pre-stored, it's all pre-done. Soundcheck took less than half an hour. Whoa! I learned so much. That was incredible, sort of a few weeks that was.
So, like I say, it's the same thing, especially at a younger age, is you can like Kieran was saying, you do learn a lot from being around with people. Even just, messaging people online and being like, look, I see you're playing at such and such. Is there any chance I can come down and just see what it looks like, or see how that happens, or walk around in a studio for half an hour just so you get that experience of being in one. That's how I got into a lot of studio stuff. There was a guy we messaged in Swindon when I was like 14, and we went down to his studio. I did some recording of the drums. It sounded terrible at the time, but then you learn, because also, especially as a recording musician, your instrument sounds so different under microphones, and you can learn so much from that, even down to the fact my voice sounds really weird now through this microphone. But you learn so much from that. And that I only found out from going and meeting some person that was like, oh, well, you're going to find suddenly you sound awful because you've never heard yourself in that close recorded situation. You take the mics away and you think, oh, it sounds great. And then somebody plonks a mic on it and that drum sounds awful, and you have to do tuning and dampen it and do all this crazy stuff. And that's just the start of it before then you actually start playing. And again, that's just from learning from being around people that have taught me that, and I would have never known that without just messaging people and just being like, can I come down and have a look at your studio for half an hour?
Fiona, I'm not going to ask you the question of what's it like to be a female sound engineer, because you've probably heard that 1,000 times, but how does it make you feel? How does that question make you feel? Do you think is that still a question, or do you think that the music industry has a long way to go until we stop sort of talking about gender as part of your job description? That makes sense.
What a good question. It's one I deal with every day. Recently, as I've kind of become sound and LX number 2 at Thekla, I've been dealing with the fact that a lot of touring crew that come through the door are already working on the assumption that I don't know how to do my job that I've been hired for. And that's something that I've had to approach strategically so that I'm still getting job satisfaction, and also that shows go ahead and that they're cohesive and professional. So I think the technique that I've kind of been using is like heavily social media based. Earlier, what I said on Instagram, I've kind of been breaking down the kind of walls of what actually I do in my job as a live sound engineer. So I'll kind of show people around on like my story and stuff and just be like, cool, these are the mics that I'm using today. This is like how I'm processing this particular channel, to just kind of get that accessibility, because I know when I was starting out in live sound, I would have literally killed to have a woman with yellow hair and red lipstick show me around a console. Like, I think that visibility is so important. And I think that, if she can see it, she can be it. So that's my approach for sure. And it's working. I get work through it. And people are really grateful for that kind of platform. So yeah, so far I'm a really big fan.
How about you, Kate? Do you come across that in the business side of it?
I would say so. Just there is a lot less women in business in general, like in the music industry. For example, where I work in a tile yard in King's Cross, and our block has about 10 studios in it, and I am the only female in that block. I don't know why that is. I don't know whether that's sexism in the industry or whether it's just less women are being encouraged into the industry, into production, into doing the sound side of stuff. From an artist perspective, I would say there are things in place where women are being more encouraged. I know that there's the Bristol company.
Saffron Records.
Yes, Saffron Records, that are really encouraging. I've been to some of their events, and there's a DJ company in Bristol as well.
Sister Works, they're amazing.
Maybe, yeah.
They're really cool.
And there is a lot of things that are starting to come into play for giving women opportunities, and PRS, they do funding specifically for women in music, which is great. I think it's getting better. I think it's developing, and I think it's that approach of being like, well, why are you talking to me like that just because I'm a woman? Like, why am I turning up to this gig and that instantly the sound engineer is switching off to me? The male sound engineer is switching off to me and refusing not to talk to me because he thinks I don't know what I'm talking about when I've been doing it for so long. And I think that approach is hopefully dying because of people like yourself. And I think, I think it's getting more positive.
Yeah, I'd say so. I work with some really amazing women that come through, and they're always stoked to have a female engineer. I think that's really cool. We had Samantha Fish in last night. I mixed her last night. She's probably the most badass guitar player I've ever seen. She did a Nina Simone cover, and it was just like these 3 generations of female influence on that stage, and it was just staggering. It was amazing. That's super important. It's very cool.
Off topic. Was Curse of Lino supporting her?
Yeah, they were. They totally were.
We work with them.
Oh, nice one. Yeah, they're
random.
Lovely folks.
Yeah, he's lovely.
See, music's a small world.
It is a very small. We were saying that earlier, weren't we? I'm just going to hop in here and actually point out. I've never ever had in what we would deem sort of the music we do ever had a female tech come on tour to my venues. I've never had that. Since I've been working at the Neils in Chippenham, just down the road, I've had 3 female techs come through, 2 of which worked on a theatre. So, and the female tech that came through with the music was on was a covers band. And I had the conversation with her about being a female tech. I'm really interested in this because I've got a daughter who is sort of 12 and interested in this kind of stuff. I'm thinking about what the future holds for her. As a receiving house for people who come to my venue, it's my job to make sure they're happy, they're comfortable. I'm very conscious. I would never dream of thinking a woman that comes to my venue isn't capable. Mike, I mean, it's giving me goosebumps thinking about it now. How could some? But it's a generational thing, I guess. You know, I'm 35. I'd like to think that if you're coming to my venue these days, people are a lot more conscious about it. I'm pretty sure we all are nowadays. But this female tech that was with the covers band, she says she's the only female tech in the country that does covers bands. She went to an award ceremony where she was the only woman in the category. She won it by default, and she felt it was really patronising because it was like, congratulations. So yeah, I love to give women the opportunity to do these things and feel like it shouldn't be a thing. I wasn't going to mention it today, but because it was mentioned, it's worth talking about. But I think we've got to get past having the conversation, really. It's you're here to do a job, I'm here to do a job. Let's work together and make some great music and make some great memories and experiences.
Be professional
and be dead professional about it, yeah.
It's the same with session musicians. There's a massive amount now for female session musicians, which, as you were saying, never used to be the case. There's a great female drummer I know called Daisy, and she does Palmer, and she does Paloma Faith. And originally Paloma Faith had a male drummer. I think she had a whole male band, and I have a feeling now she's got a full female band. And I think Beyonce did that once, and everybody's doing it, and it's great. And we had many girl drummers in our course at university as well, which is great to see. And I think it's definitely a thing that is, like you're saying, it's
starting to change.
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
I think also motherhood and being a female in working in the industry, I don't think there's any boundaries there too. I know lots of friends, female musicians who go on tour with their children, and one of the best examples I've ever seen was End of the Road Festival last year. Nadine Shah was on stage. Incredible front of house sound. I go up to the front of house desk at the end to say thanks to whoever it was, and the female front of house engineer was breastfeeding while she was mixing front of house. So I just thought that would be a nice point to make, that there's nothing can get in the way of a career in music if you're a female, and that includes children being involved in that as well.
Yeah.